The way that your career pans out is directly linked to the quality of music that you put out as an artist or producer. The better quality stuff that you put out, the better opportunities that you get. It's like each song you put out there is a small piece of a larger ticket to what your destination is. By making great sounding music, you unlock the potential to wake up and do what you love every day. You get paid to do it. You even get recognition from friends as the one who's doing what they love. And I can tell you from experience, they'll either envy you or you'll be their biggest inspiration, which is pretty sick. But the problem is most artists don't actually know how to improve their art in a way that can compound over time and actually creates life-changing impact for them. Over the last decade, I've been a full-time working professional music producer. I've worked with over 100 artists. I've engineered at different studios. I've worked alongside some of the biggest songwriters in the UK. And I create songs for some of the biggest influencers in the music scene today. And I've also built up a catalogue of my own music, 100 songs strong, that generates me monthly revenue and has recently landed me a sync deal in a film, which was pretty sweet. And it's all directly linked to the quality of my output and just being consistent. So in this video, I'm going to bubble the whole thing down to the 3 phases that I put my songs through to achieve that quality with regular output, to make sure that I'm improving every time and not just throwing stuff out into the abyss and hoping for the best. The first phase is mindset and pre-production. So before we even touch an instrument, we need to reframe our approach. To me, when producing songs, the landscape is pretty vast. It can be overwhelming and there's almost too much to explore. And because of that, you can be pulled in so many different directions. And so we can struggle to know where to start. Reframing our mental approach is probably one of the most overlooked things in music because we just want to get creating, but you would never just paint a wall without first prepping it. So that's just something to consider. And these are the 3 things that I do to help kind of reframe my mind when approaching making music. The first reframe is the 80-20 principle. And if you've not heard this before, it means that 80% of your progress comes from 20% of the work that you do. If you actually think about the things that you do, you will find that the biggest, highest impact stuff that you do comes from the smallest, more significant changes. So in your quest to improve, your job is to identify this crucial 20% and the tasks associated with it. The 20% that moves the needle most. For most artists, that means writing more often. It means finishing more demos, improving your vocal performance so you can get to a finished vocal quicker, as opposed to endlessly tweaking plugins or perfecting details that no one will hear. What we want to do is find the highest impact habits that you can then double down on. And I'll tell you what some of these can be a little bit later on. The second reframe is the power of limitation. Interestingly, limitation drives creativity. As I said at the beginning, when you have too much to explore, you can be pulled in 1,000 different directions. Too many options kill momentum. When you set constraints, you channel your focus and you can make stronger decisions faster. It can also prevent decision fatigue. I personally like to set boundaries in the key areas of the songmaking process. I like to set a boundary in structure. So I like to just stick to proven song formats. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. You know, the verse, chorus structure exists for a reason. So just use it. Instrument choice. I like to pick a really small palette and then just master that. So in my project, I have like an alternative pop sort of instrument choice there. And it's just made up of drums, guitar, bass, piano, and that's it. And they're all the same sounds. My focus is to get the song down. So I limit the instrument choice so that I can focus on the song, not the production first. Lyrical topic. I like to focus each track on one idea or emotion. So rather than trying to create an entire web of emotions and feelings in one lyrical writing session, I like to just focus on the smaller, more significant moments. And it will probably just be a singular moment. And I just lock in on that particular moment. So that's another constraint that I apply. Also, harmony and melody. I use simple major and natural minor scales. I sometimes throw in some fun chords out there, but you know, your music theory has to kind of be good enough to do that. So if you can do that, great. But if not, keep to really simple chords and top line melodies. Keep to the major scale. It's the one thing you'll always write in. So don't try and be fancy, just use what's there. You can even build an entire song just from one chord progression, letting your top line evolve the section. So that could be a limitation that you give to yourself. I've always found that less choice gives you more clarity. And then the final piece to our reframe is inspiration. It's really awesome to create these abstract, deep, meaningful lyrics, but you have to remember that that is a harder connect with a listener. So the biggest impact lyrics I've found have always been the most simple phrases, the phrases people say day to day. And that's something I really like to do when writing lyrics. I really like to take just common day-to-day phrases and weave them into my music somehow. I like to use conversational language with authentic emotion. It's way less work because you're not having to come up with some crazy concepts, but it has way more impact. Just use the language that your listeners already understand and use. And rather than sitting down to try conjure up lyric ideas, if you are struggling on ideas, just go and live a little. That's your kind of excuse to go and live life. Step outside of your routine, go and travel, go talk, go experience different things, and then you can come back. The only thing that you have to think about when doing this is a way to capture the ideas when inspiration strikes. So the biggest thing that I use is just my voice memos on my phone. I've got the iPhone 15, it's got the action button here, and I've assigned that to my voice memos. So if I get an idea, whether it's lyrical, whether it's melodic, or even just like a collection of instruments, I think, oh, that'd be quite cool, I just voice note it in here and that's it. Learning to capture your ideas is probably one of the most powerful habits that you could build. And then when you sit down to write in the studio, you're not starting from a blank page. You're actually building on lived experiences, which again has way more impact. So phase 2, we're moving into practical creation. We've looked at our reframe and how we're going to approach it. Now let's start doing stuff. The first thing in phase 2 to me is to build simple demos. I like to think horizontally, not vertically. Don't overproduce early on, especially when you're making songs. It's very easy to get caught up with producing because you might be learning all these fun techniques and, there's a time and place to practice that. Maybe schedule in a session to do that. But when you're trying to create music that is career defining and we're trying to make songs, don't overproduce early on. I personally start with a simple, really simple setup, like an idea, and I use drums, guitar, piano, and then bass. That's it. And if you don't have crazy skills as a producer yet, keep it to those organic instruments. You don't need more than that. So many of the greatest songs in the world come from just those instruments. As a minimum, I like to write one strong chord progression with a defining melody idea. I then just like to build horizontally, so I might add some drums into that section to create a chorus, and then take the drums out for a verse, add drums again, that's my chorus. Dead simple. I essentially build the full song from start to finish, the structure anyway, before I start perfecting the individual parts. And a little bonus tip for you is to just use a template. If you have a go-to session that has all your favorite sounds in there, common instruments, as a minimum, I would certainly just create one that has your 5 main areas of instruments, your drums, mids like guitar and piano, bass, vocals, and effects. I would just have those 5 tracks ready to go so you can just hop in and start creating something. Again, it saves time, reduces decisions, and it just keeps you creating instead of overthinking. Part 2 in phase 2 is to prioritize the fundamentals. There are 2 main things that I like to think about here. The first is to record well. One mic is all you need. You don't need more than that. And you just want to create the cleanest possible recording where you can. So if your room has a little bit of reverb, then add some sound absorption on the wall to take away the reverb. If you have a lot of stuff in your bedroom, then go record in there, because the more stuff that's in a place, the more it deadens the sound. The second thing to think about is performance intention. Make sure the performance is as you intend, from instruments to vocals. And what I mean by that is think about how you enter a note if you're singing, how you finish a note, the breathiness of it. On a guitar, maybe it's how much you're going to bend a note, maybe the level of vibrato you're going to do at the end of a lick. Think about every aspect of your performance and be intentional. Everything has to earn its place on the recording. Just by mastering this skill alone, you will improve the sound and quality of your records. It's actually ridiculous. You almost wouldn't even need to mix your song if you do stuff this well. If you're not there yet in terms of your abilities, then maybe that's something for you to think about over this next sort of phase of your life, is to focus on the skills that will get you there. And that would be a high impact skill that I would focus on. Basically, if your vocals are expressive, intentional, and your instruments are tight, you're kind of 8% done. Overall, for me, simple arrangements with great performances beat complex productions every single time. The third part to this phase is to keep the mix simple to make it sound bigger. And what I mean by that is there's this interesting phenomenon, which is the less you have in a mix, the bigger it feels because there's less clutter. It's kind of like when there's fewer instruments, there's fewer things fighting for space. Each part can occupy more in the stereo field. It means you can also make it louder. For example, one clean, confident guitar performance can fill an entire mix, and then you enhance that with reverb, delay, modulation. If your session feels a little too bare in the beginning, remember it's not empty, it's intentional. You're leaving space for texture, atmosphere, and creative design later on. That's a great way to fill out space and make one part sound huge. To me, it's what separates a cluttered demo from a professional sounding record. And it's not to say that you can't add multiple layers onto things, but it's just being intentional with what each layer does. And in the beginning, if you're not sure how to put a lot of things together, fit a lot of stuff together in a production, just do less. You're going to have a bigger return on your time doing that. And it gives you less work, but everyone still thinks you're a genius. The next phase is post-review and refinement. You've reframed your mindset. You've got some practical things that you can do to create. Now what I want to do is measure that. Because if you don't measure it, you don't know what to change or address moving forward. So you can never really improve in a way that is meaningful. So the first part of this is the creative loop. To me, every song you make is a data point, not a masterpiece. So we're talking specifically about a system to refine your process, not the actual art itself. Remember, we need to separate these two. Your art is fueled by your creativity. Let that be its thing. But then you do have to systemize that art in order to improve and get better. And I like every song to follow this loop. I like to create it. I like to review it. I like to adjust it. And then I repeat. That's the creative loop. That's what you have to do. If there's one thing you take away from this video, it's create, review, adjust, repeat. I can't stress that enough. When you release a song, see what resonates with your audience. When you show friends and family, what do they like? When you step back and listen to a song and compare it to something that's in the charts, ask yourself, what is it about this song that could be improved next time when I make another song? And rather than focusing on trying to improve that one song, you just move on to the next song so that you've got this data touch point here and you're not constantly trying to refine the same thing. You can then just create something new with these new ideas and improvements. So being consistent and constantly reflecting on what you do will lead to that growth. The second thing to think about in phase 3 is detached from perfectionism. Remember, one song doesn't define your career, your body of work does. If you have a brilliant body of work that's been built on all the time and is constantly growing, it's going to do more for you. You don't need to pour everything that you know into one track or EP. That goes from lyrical ideas, melodies to production tips. Be selective. If you have come up or discovered a new concept that you want to dive into or a production technique, do it in the next song. Don't try and fit it into this new song unnecessarily. I've worked with artists where we've started creating a song together and it's been a folk inspired song. And then they come back the next week and go, actually, I want it to be a pop country record because I'm really inspired by this band now. And he's like, that's cool, but you should just write a new song. Don't try and change the song that you wrote as a folk record. It can be done, but it's now creating more work where we don't need to. Let this song live as a folk record. And so that's the general idea. If you're an artist, let each song that you create explore a single emotion or part of a story, then move on. The whole story doesn't have to be in there. You're building a universe with your music, a storyline that in a few years you'll look back on and go, oh, I remember that time. Like everything you do now is part of your story and journey that you will look back on in a few years. If I look back at the first songs that I released as an artist, it's kind of laughable, but I remember that time in my life. And if I speak to people about it, I can just say, oh yeah, you can sort of listen to the old stuff that I did and you can hear where I was at. This mindset shift removes pressure and keeps your creative momentum alive. It now doesn't put the pressure of change onto one idea. It spreads out across multiple. And to finish off, using your creativity and a system is what will result in your long-term growth. You have to remember the art is your soul and the system is your structure. When they work together, you can create freely, release consistently, and improve intentionally. If you made it this far and you are in the position where you want to create career-defining music for yourself and you're looking for just a little bit more guidance, or maybe you want someone to do it for you, then check the description down below and book a call. You'll chat with me, we'll have a discussion and see if there's any way that I can help you with your project. Otherwise, hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you in the next one.